So it's been nearly a year since I reviewed the Cubicon Single, a huge machine that blew me away with its ability to automatically level its bed mechanically and ability to print ABS parts that were large with almost zero warping. It was a large 3D printer with a very large price tag to match. In America, around $3,000, and in Australia, almost $5,000 Australian. So how does the Cubicon Style stack up to its larger brother? Well, watch to find out. Welcome back to Makers Muse. My name is Angus and this is the Cubicon Style from High Vision Systems based out of Korea. This machine was lent to me free of charge from 3D printing studios who retail the Cubicon machines around Australia. So it's pretty obvious just by looking at it that the Cubicon Style takes a very different approach to providing a desktop 3D printer versus many other 3D printing manufacturers on the market at the moment. It takes ABS, PLA and flexible TPU filaments in the 1.75mm diameter. The build volume is 150 by 150 by 150 millimeters, which isn't that big. It's around the same size as the Flash Forge Finder, and indeed the Cetus I recently reviewed from Tier Time, even that machine has a larger build volume. That's not the point of the Cubicon Style. This machine is designed to be a complete, bulletproof, ready to run, reliable 3D printing solution, which might be why it's built from thick aluminium and steel sheet metal, injection molded plastic, and by the way, the entire machine weighs 15 kilos. Like its bigger brother, the print bed on the Cubicon Style is extremely unusual. It's a flat, smooth plate of metal that heats up to insane temperatures. When it's printing ABS, getting up to 125 degrees on that plate is no issue at all, and it's because of this higher temperature that it seems to be able to print in ABS with almost no warping. Something that's quite unusual these days because most manufacturers are just giving up on ABS and going straight to just PLA only. Another feature of the Style is it's fully enclosed, so that heat bed not only warms up itself, but the ambient temperature around it, which helps you also stop warping further up prints away from the heat bed. It also has a HEPA filter with a carbon layer as well, so you can cut down some of those smells. It's still within the debate whether these things actually help in terms of hazardous fumes, but it does certainly stop this machine making much smell. It also operates extremely quietly. In fact, sometimes I had to check on this to see if it was even printing when I was in the same room. It does have a lot of vibration dampening within it, and it's quite well built, but if you're working on the same table, you still will feel a little bit of vibrations from it while printing. The interface is a logical set of push buttons and an LCD screen that you can use to load and unload filament, preheat the machine, and send your files to print from the SD card. You can also connect the machine to your computer via the USB Type-A cable, and it's all run off a 24-volt DC powered brick. So aesthetically, the Cubicon Style gets full points, but what about ease of use? Well, to be honest, this machine is one of the few that comes very, very close to a true ready-to-run experience out of the box. There's very little that I had to do to this machine in terms of getting a print, sending it to the printer, and just letting it go. But how does it do that? Well, unlike its larger brother, the Cubicon Style doesn't have a mechanically leveling bed, but it is software leveled via a touch probe that touches on various touch pads. Now, I do need to state this. My machine has been working flawlessly and the leveling system has been working great. However, Joel over at the 3D Printing Nerd has been also looking at the Cubicon Style, and this system in his machine did develop a fault. So the thing about the Cubicon Style is it's a very intelligent machine. It runs various internal diagnostics and fault checking, as well as that bed leveling before each print. So if one of these systems fails, there's not much you as a user can do. And this is what happened to Joel's machine. So as I said, mine's been working great, but he ran into that issue. And because it's so intelligent and complicated, it's not really a thing that you could fix. So we're going to get into that more later in the video, but it's something to keep in mind. The Cubicon printers have their own slicer program, which is called Cubicreator, and it's actually pretty good. It's very powerful and you can change lots of features, but it is a little bit daunting to use and certainly not that user-friendly, especially if you've never used a 3D printer slicer before. The sliced G-code is exported out in a weird format, which is .hvs, which you might think is some sort of proprietary format, but it's actually not. You can rename it to .g-code, which means it works both ways. You can actually get Simplify 3D, and they now have profiles for this machine and the Cubicon Single, and export out from there. You just rename it to .hvs, actually Simplify 3D does that for you, and the machine won't know the difference, which is really good if you prefer to use other slicers. Alrighty then guys, Print quality, that's what you want to know about? Well, let's get straight into it. I started off printing my traditional torture test using the stock ABS that the printer came with. And to be completely honest, this print is fantastic. I printed it on the default fine setting, which is 100 micron layer height, although you can go finer, as I did later. And in terms of the print quality, it is really good. The print stuck down and then self-released as it cooled down. And that's what this bed does really well. The prints stick down even if they're ABS, and then they will release. Now there is a tiny bit of lifting in some of the corners. This was printed without a raft. You can turn raft on, and it's completely forgivable considering it's ABS. Now in terms of the actual quality, the peak is sharp, actually dangerously sharp. It's got no issues with cooling there. The overhangs are great. The columns all printed. I had a flurry of school kids in here yesterday and they broke all my samples, but I assure you the columns did print quite well. But there is noticeable stringing, and this is something I kept encountering when doing 3D prints on the Cubicon Style. Moving into larger territory, this is a robot frame sent to me by one of my friends who wanted to test it out. I haven't sent it to him yet because I wanted it for this video. But this is an ABS print. It's pretty much the whole bed on the Cubicon Style, and it has zero warping at all. No issues printing this, no problem at all. I did print with a raft in this case because I was a little bit unsure if it would stick, but even without a raft, I think it probably would have been okay. Now, I will say again, the stringing is a constant issue that I've been having with the Style. And it really shouldn't be there because let's look at the facts. Cubic Creator is designed to run two machines, the Cubicon Single and the Cubicon Style. I'm printing with their own brand of ABS plastic that came with the machine, so it should be fine-tuned to not have this problem. But honestly, at the machine at this price point, that shouldn't be happening. I also found support materials, while they did work, weren't as nice to use as those out of, for example, the Up printers, which have a very nice interface layer that holds those bottom layers in place that then breaks away cleanly. The supports generated by the Cubic Creator software do work, but they don't break away as nicely. They're more like a grid support rather than a line with an interface layer. A few other things I printed is this robot cat from My Mini Factory. I'll put a link in the description. And this is a really nice, cute model, printed at 200 microns, and it's going to be one of my future projects to try finishing projects printed on 3D printers and then painting them. So I haven't done much of that, and I figured the Cubicon Style was a good machine to test this out on. And yeah, overall it came really well, apart from the support material, which I said doesn't break away as cleanly. And then next I tried some PLA. So I decided to try the Polyalchemy Elixir blend, which is a brand new brand of filament I've been testing out. And so far I'm really happy with it. It's got this really unique shine to it. And although it didn't work for me on the Cetus, it printed flawlessly on the Cubicon Style. So I printed my torch test again, tiny bit of stringing like I mentioned, but overall it is just fantastic, really shiny and sharp. And I even printed a Maker coin at 50 microns by accident. I was meant to do 250, I did 50, but yeah, it did it flawlessly. So it's a bit unusual not being able to feel the layers. But yeah, it did that very well. Cooling with PLA is a bit of an issue because this machine is trying to do two things at once. It's trying to be really hot for ABS and then cold for PLA, but there's no sensors, so you can print with the top open and the front open to get a bit more cooling, which is what you want if you're going to want to print PLA on this machine. So in summary, my experience with the Cubicon Style has been pretty much flawless. Apart from the few small print quality issues that could be tweaked in software, the machine has been a joy to use. You just send a file to it and then you print. But there is two gotchas when it comes to the Cubicon Style. First is the price. At a build volume of 150 millimeters cube, this machine is around 3,000 Australian dollars or 1,600 US, which is crazy. I mean, you could buy 3 Wanhao i3 Pluses for the same you'd pay for one of these machines, which is pretty nuts. But I don't think, again, like the Cubicon Single, I don't think this machine is intended for hobbyists. This machine is intended for schools or university environments or a business work environment where an open frame printer would be invasive and noisy and disrupt the work environment. This machine, in its ability to self-compensate for the bed and to print quietly, and pretty much, I haven't had any failures in terms of my prints so far, would probably pay itself off in that environment. But if you're working from home and you've got spare time and you're a hobbyist, it's probably way out of your price range. Let's be reasonable here. And the second point, I've mentioned that the Cubicon Style is extremely intelligent, has lots of self-check features, and the bed compensation is very intelligent. But that also counts against it. If something goes wrong with this machine, if it gets damaged in transit, or if it gets damaged through long-term use, if a wire fatigues, you're not going to be able to fix that as the end user. You're going to probably have to get it sent back for repair, and depending on where you bought it, it will be a back to base repair, and that could be a different country, which is going to be very expensive and very much an inconvenience to you. So if I was to buy this machine, I would have to make sure that I was geographically close to a reseller who could actually do the repairs if something did go wrong. There's no way I'd buy this if I had to send it back to Korea, to Haivision directly to get it repaired, because they would become really expensive very fast. So that's going to do it, guys, for my review of the Cubicon Style. A big thanks to 3D Printing Studios and Haivision for lending me this machine to review, and full disclosure, no money has changed hands. They simply lent this machine to me for quite a while actually to test out and bring you guys an unbiased review. And if you're interested in buying one in Australia, I'll put a link to their store in the video description. If you want to see more future 3D printing reviews, tips and tricks on Makers Muse, guys, hit that subscribe button. Helps me out a huge amount. I'd love to have you on board, and look forward to seeing you again very shortly here on Makers Muse. Catch you later, guys. Bye.
Here's the latter half of the 20th century, and man has sent rockets into deep space. He has placed satellites into orbit. He has actually walked in space.